Simply connect.
So very quickly, what we're going to show on the demo, we're actually going to walk you through managing of a system, how you can operationally manage it. You're going to see how we manage nodes, how we manage data centers. You're going to see some of the different options. You're going to see quality of service. You're going to see a lot of that. And we're going to go through it in an amazingly short length of time. So we're going to see if we can do a 6-minute demo. I got rid of my jacket, so I'm now in my techie look. So very quickly, what you're seeing here, this is a front dashboard. This is the running cluster that we have running. You can see the current capacity managed across the cluster. Right, so over here, you also see whether the cluster is currently healthy. There aren't any alerts on it, so this is good to see. You're seeing the transactional I/O across the cluster, any of the put data. So very simple dashboard that shows you everything that's going on in the cluster. You also then have the entities that are managed. So let's drill into some of those really quickly. So Victor, as storage admin, if you can drill into the groups managed side of things.
So here I'm going to list the groups. Right, I see the properties of, or the attributes of each group. I could assign QoS settings and also make a setting that will be global. And I could create new groups at this state. And if you look at the property of the group here, I could set some of the limits for storage quotas, rates of transfer. I could also associate a particular group to a rating plan, right? I could create one. The way to do that, I just click on a rating plan here, create one, and a rating plan is where I define pricing associated with a resource, such as storage or rates, right? Such as these listed here.
So the main goal of this is to keep the system highly multi-tenanted. You've got different groups who are using the system. You've got to make sure that it's fair across groups. We're not having abuse. But also we want very detailed accounting, and so that we can actually get a lot of customers of ours don't do chargeback. You know, service providers particularly do. But they do want to see this level of auditing where they can actually see what's going on in the system and how are different groups using it. And so we build it very easily. The different rating plans is kind of interesting. It comes to our background. Our background is from working with big service providers like NTT in Japan and Nifty, who are two of our early customers, really building this in as a true cloud service. So as we drill into this, maybe another thing to kind of quickly look at, let's have a look at the capacity view. I mean, just drill down to what Vikram was showing earlier.
Right, so Paul, as you can see, I could have a cluster that has many or 3 data centers in this case, and clearly they have different capacity, storage capacity, and also used and free. But if you look at this particular data center, Northern California, you see very distributed or very even distribution of use capacity among the nodes comprising the DC.
So let's kind of come back and let's drill into, so you get a good capacity view, you get a good view of the overall health of the system, you can diagnose if anything's going wrong in the system. Let's at this point actually jump straight into looking at the nodes in the system, the data centers and the nodes within the system.
Right, so as I said earlier, you have data centers that have different numbers of nodes, right? And earlier, here is where I would add my node to grow my cluster for that particular data center.
And this is all the user has to do, right? You're keying in a host name and the IP address, you're keying in basically credentials access. We then push all of the node updates, we reconfigure it into the cluster, we rebalance the cluster on the fly. So all of that is done for you in the background. The other thing that I think, so let's go into now actual use, right? So it's meant to be a system where you have a storage administrator. We've talked about policies. The storage administrator is able to control the policy, and then it's able to be used by a user who's actually able to then use that appropriately. So the storage administrator is governing the data protection, the durability of it. So why don't we go and create a policy?
Sure. So to do that, I'm a Mac user, by the way, guys. That's slightly bit of a struggle here, but this is how you do it.
I've tortured you by giving you a Windows machine to work.
So obviously the name matters, right? So you give it a name, you give it a good description, something that you would recognize as you pull out the names. And you have a choice of either creating a replication within a single data center or erasure coding, right, within a single data center, or replication across data centers, where in this case, I could easily create a storage policy that spans by data center. So one copy can be in each data center. And also, I could do replication across data centers, right, over erasure-coded nodes or policies. Okay, that's how you would do it. And in this example, I've chose to, or I'm gonna choose to create a replication across data centers with 3 replicas, right? And then I would choose my data center, NorCal, Las Vegas, and down here I could define my consistency level for data, right? I could customize that so that I can choose, right, either a very strong requirements, or I could say just quorum, so that in the event that quorum meaning majority, so that you have 2 of my data centers available, then I will complete that operation either for reads or for writes.
And I think also of note there, you notice there was also metadata consistency. So we actually do that so that you can actually set different policies for how you want metadata replicated. This is, very hands-on. As a system administrator, as a storage administrator, they want to be able to govern this. They want to be able to govern how they want to replicate data. It's not how you want your users to act. They understand their data, but you want the users to be able to just now use these policies. So what's great about this is it's a one-time, you set up, and storage administrators set up their policies. And now we'll show you a user side of things, of them actually creating a bucket and what they can do, and then they can set their life cycle. They can select, of course, the policy that's associated for their particular data, what's relevant, and we'll show you that. So in this case, he's actually changed into Janet, because we thought Janet was kind of a fun name for Victor here. So we've got Janet, the user.
My alter ego, right? Okay. So first thing I could do at this point is create a bucket. And I could give it a name, of course. That's bucket. And now I can select my custom storage policy to be associated to that bucket name. In this case, I'll just choose one. I'll pick on RAD, or replication across data center. This is what I mean by earlier by providing a very good description. Kind of pulls that right here. Okay, I can click create. And now I can load objects to that particular bucket. Let me bring up the properties here. Oh.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. All right. So this would be the place where I could define the lifecycle policy. I could easily do that by clicking on enable tiering. And here I can specify either to tier to AWS or to Glacier. Okay, and I can also provide my credentials, right? Providing the access key and the secret key for that particular destination. Now I could also expire objects from this bucket by specifying the time that those objects will expire, right? Now, if I don't want that to happen, I may choose a replication, right, onto another S3 endpoint. I could do that here. Again,
Mac privileged.
So how does that look if you do a query from using S3 to actually look at the lifecycle policy and list them? Because you're doing it to a certain degree one way correctly,
Okay.
and in another way you're sort of modifying that policy slightly. So if I did the query and said, show me the lifecycle policy, what would it look like? Would it be similar? Would it be?
Let me think.
Gary, do you know?
Let me take you back there.
Sorry, I didn't quite follow. So
if I use the API and I build a call that says, show me the lifecycle policy, but I do that from an S3 API call.
you're talking about the S3 bucket lifecycle API?
Yeah, yes. So I use the API to actually do a call and say, show me the bucket policy.
Correct.
Now, there's only limited settings within that, so
That's
I can only do very little. You're sort of extending that slightly here. You're producing a subset. So what will I see back in that API? Will I see something that you've decided to code yourself?
So I understand. So these are completely separate. So when you do the S3 bucket lifecycle calls, you'll get exactly what you expect as far as the S3 API.
Okay.
And this is a separate interface and a separate.
So I won't be able to see, if I query it through the REST API, I will not be able to see this information.
Correct.
Okay.
Right.
But
Have
there are
we
admin
extended?
APIs that actually, again, if you want to completely automate this, so
Yeah,
there's a whole.
it's a different API.
We call them the admin API. You can call them and you'll get the same information.
So let's watch time-wise. So I think what you see is, very easy capability so that, Janet here can actually create buckets very easily. Of course, it's all under control. They're not getting in there and they're not allowed to do things that are dangerous to the system side of things. They're in control. They're doing it based on policy, but they can govern how they want to age their data. They understand the value of their data, so how they want to age their data, how they want to manage it in terms of life cycle, whether they want to tier it. All of that is possible for the users. So with that, we want to actually switch back to, how does the end user actually go and use this? So very quickly, I'd like to show, actually, we may not have time. I'm just thinking time-wise, we may be a little tight on time. So we had another application that we were going to show you, which is actually a full Veeam and Commvault actually using this service. We can probably show it to you guys later. But what's really nice is they just can use it as, it looks exactly like a Commvault application. You can do, you can get back a single, in Veeam, I can get back a single VM and I can bring it up as a temporary VM and start it up. And all of the stateful storage, the backup is on us. Commvault exactly the same way. All of the valuable dedupe that you get out of Commvault is still available to you. So you're getting this compressed, deduped backup that gets fed into us, all because on the back end of it, they've already implemented coded S3. So Commvault, of course, uses coded S3. Veeam, we're using our HCF agent, which is our NFS SMB connector. We're using that to actually connect in through the S3 store. So wealth of applications that we can support.